Gamers, today we're going to be discussing which Civ should you be playing in 2023. I'm recording this in 2022, but it's going to be uploaded in 2023, so happy new year for you guys in the future. I wish you all the best. I hope that 2023 is great for you. And if you were wondering which Civ should you play, if you're a new player, this is a question I get very often. How do I pick a Civ? How do I know which Civ is good for me? Well, that's what I'm gonna make the video about. It's not gonna be a video about strategies. It's not gonna be a video about which Civ is the best. It's gonna be me going through the civilizations and kind of explaining, giving you kind of like a brief description of what the Civs are all about. This might change in the future, but probably not. General playstyles of the Civs remain, even though there's gonna be balance patches or some kind of balance changes. So let's get started. The easiest Civs that are right now in the game, not necessarily easiest, but I would say the simplest one to start playing with and to start kind of playing Age of Empires 4 with not a lot of complicated mechanics are probably going to be English, French, and perhaps Holy Roman Empire. I think is pretty straightforward. And then some of the other ones we'll discuss it a little bit later. So people always say English and French are the easiest, but I think HRE is not that far away. But in the first tier, we're going to put English and French. What is English Civ? What it is all about. English Civ is a very defensive Civ. It has a lot of bonuses around their buildings where they have increased attack speed. They can grow farms really early, so they have safe food around their town center, so you don't need to go out on the map. The map control for English is not that important. What's important for English is to have kind of like safe economy at home and slowly expand on the map with strong units. And you always want to fight around your towers or town centers because you get the attack speed bonus. They're also great Civ for water maps, and that's kind of their general play style. It's the strong economy, strong late game, very strong late game, defensive. They have unique units that are longbows. And like I said, they can go farms really early, and they're not dependent on going out on the map to get food like every other Civ in the game. So it's very hard to harass English in the early game. In general, you focus with this Civ on infantry, but you can also go cavalry if you want to. The next one is French. So French Civ is basically the complete opposite of English, even though they're probably the two most basic Civs. They're the complete opposite. They are a Civ that needs to have map control. They're not the Civ where you sit back in your base and you wait for a later game. The moment you age up to feudal, you want to be making knights, and French are one of the two Civs that have knights in feudal age. So you want to be making knights instantly, harassing your opponent, attacking, trying to kill their villagers. So if a Civ that's very harass based is something that you like and something that requires map control, it requires you to basically grab as much food on the map and kind of overwhelm your opponent with the amount of cavalry and crossbow archer support, then this is something for you. They also have very good trade, so if the game ever reaches to that point where you can trade, they have really good traders. A lot of their economic upgrades are cheaper, so this allows you to have more units early on, and it's a very, very, very tempo-based Civ. It doesn't have any hidden mechanics that you have to be worried about. Very, very straightforward. The next Civ, I guess the next tier, I'm going to put this in like 1 out of 3 stars like the in-game says. 2 out of 3 stars, we're going to start with Holy Roman Empire. Holy Roman Empire is, I was kind of on the fence of 1 or 2 stars, but we're going to go with 2. Once you set up your economy, Holy Roman Empire is a very straightforward Civ. The only reason why I would say it's a bit harder than English and French is there are some landmarks like the chapel where you have to build farms around it. You also have a prelate, which is basically a monk that can inspire your villagers to work faster. So you kind of have an extra economic unit to work with, which makes it a little bit harder than these other 2 Civs. Holy Roman Empire has very strong buildings. It has a lot of upgrades for their keeps, for their walls to have more HP. They're very, like it says, religion focused, and that is part of the relics. So there's a lot of things that Holy Roman Empire can do with relics. And the way you want to play Holy Roman Empire in general is you want to open defensively, and the moment you hit 3rd age, which is the castle age, then you want to get out on the map and kind of secure relics for yourself because they will give you a lot of gold And they're also the only civ that can put relics in their buildings and then empower the buildings, the defensive buildings like keeps, towers, stonewall towers, and even docks. So you also have different bonuses to give extra gold from the relics if you go cathedral landmark. But in general, other than that, they have a very, very strong economy. They have the strongest men-at-arms in the game, which are the heavy armored infantry. They get also access to men-at-arms in feudal age. And their whole play style is, like I said, you start off defensively, you get your economy going, and you kind of want to just mass units, these strong, kind of slow units, and kind of manage to overwhelm your opponent while securing the relics and slowly pushing your opponent. And it's also the civ that can hit the fastest Imperial Age and then kind of continue booming from then on out. And they also have very, very, very strong gathering rate in the early game with the prelate, the monk that inspires the villagers. And also the villagers can carry 40% more resources. So if this is something that you think is good, you know, a civilization that's focused on eco early, then map control, and then it has, you know, the strong keep and wall upgrades to kind of fall back to, then this is a civ for you. It's kind of, regarding the map control, it's like a mix between English and French, I would say. You don't need to go all out on the map, but you do need to go more on the map than English does. The next civ we will be talking about is Rus. Now, Rus, as I like to call it, is a budget French, but Rus has a different role than French. Rus is kind of like a mix of Holy Roman Empire and French. And the reason for that is Rus is the second civ that has knights in feudal. So they can harass very early like the French can. But they have different bonuses. They don't have cheaper upgrades, but they have stronger walls, for example. They have wooden outposts, which are called wooden fortresses, that give you 20% extra wood income when delivered to the lumber camp nearby. And the reason why I say they're a mix of Holy Roman Empire and French is because Holy Roman Empire wants to get to castle fast with strong economy, and French kind of wants to play in feudal with knights. French is usually played with heavy feudal aggression, and Rus can be played either way. So it can be played like French, where you go with heavy knights and feudal and you attack your opponent with archers, but it's not as good as French in that. But it can also do a second strategy, which is rushing castle and then picking up relics around the map, just like HRE, and kind of playing off of that. Or you can do a mix of those two things. So you have kind of multiple options with Rus that you can do, but other civs do those things a bit better, but they're more one-dimensional, if that makes sense. Another thing that Rus has going for them is they have the fastest and best fishing economy because of their ships, fishing ships not requiring to go back to the dock to drop off food. They also have an interesting mechanic, like I said, with wooden fortresses, where they get 20% more wood. Their towers garrison 8 villagers compared to the normal towers that do 5. And they also have hunting cabins that generate gold when they're placed next to the wood on the map. They're going to passively generate gold. And the most unique thing about Rus is at the start of the game, you want to make another scout and you want to go around and kill all the deer you can, all the wolves. The reason you do that is because Rus gets gold from killing animals early on, and you get a thing called bounty, which increases your food gathering rate on all your villagers and improves gold income from hunting cabins. So whenever you play against Rus or with Rus, you should be killing all the animals on the map, except sheep, of course, which you should take home. So Rus is kind of, they can do quite a lot of different strategies, but other civs might do it better at this point. But in general, they have a very versatile playstyle. They can also go for multiple town centers and expand, and their late game is very strong because of their unique unit called Streltsy, which replaces hand cannoneers from the other civ. So they can be kind of played religion-based, cavalry-based, or just, you know, economic full-based. The next civ we'll be talking about is, I would also say 2 stars, is Abbasid. Now, Abbasid is a very economically based civ. If you've played StarCraft, Abbasid is probably the most alike Zerg. The reason for that is, well, first of all, they don't have multiple landmarks like every other civ. They only have, I think it's called House of Wisdom. I always mess that one up. where you actually upgrade your age ups. And that House of Wisdom and your town center are the only two landmarks that they have. Now, the reason why Abbasid is very economic focused is the first wing that you age up to feudal is economic wing, and your workers cost 25 or 50% cheaper, so they only cost 25 food. Now, what this allows you with Abbasid is to make multiple town centers very early on and completely out economy your opponent while maintaining the unit production just like them. So if you're on 2 TCs, town centers, and they're on 1, you'll be basically producing 2 villagers for the cost of 50 food, and they'll produce 1 for the cost of 50 food. So you're slowly growing your economy while you're both spending, resources on both workers and army. And eventually, the longer the game goes, you will simply be able to have more economy. So it's a very defensive civ. Initially, you want to get multiple town centers. And eventually, once you're set up, once you feel like you're defended, then you go for the attack. And you basically try to overwhelm your opponents. I don't know what's up with me today. With quantity and not quality, right? You're not trying to trade, 5 units for 5. You're not trying to trade your 5 units for 10. You're trying to trade your 50 units for 30 because your economy is so much better that it does not matter. That doesn't mean their units are weaker, by the way. It just means that having that extra eco allows you for this kind of gameplay. Another unique thing about them, except House of Wisdom, where you can upgrade a lot of different techs and your age ups, is their city planning bonus, as you can see right there. And the city planning bonus is the more buildings you have connected together. They don't need to be next to each other, but you'll see like an orange zone. The more buildings you have connected, you will get certain bonuses when you have 10 buildings connected, and I think it's then 30 and then 60. So these bonuses are also economic. So as Abbasid, you kind of want to spread your empire and eventually reach Golden Age 3 for the, unlocking all the bonuses that you can. Other than that, that's pretty much with Abbasid. It's pretty straightforward. They also have camels, which are unique units to them, and they have a debuff that reduces 20% damage to nearby cavalry. So Abbasid are usually pretty good against, cavalry-based civ like French, or maybe if Rus is going for something like that. Next one we will be talking about is, I'm going to say Ottoman. Still, I think this is a 2 out of 3. It's not that complicated of a civ. And now Ottoman has their basic playstyle, and their most unique thing is that they have imperial schools, or military schools, sorry, and imperial council system. So it might sound complicated, but it's actually pretty straightforward. So imperial council is you get vizier points. Every time you create a unit, you get experience on the bottom left bar of your screen. And when you have enough experience, you can put a vizier point into one of the 9 bonuses that you have, that you unlock. And those bonuses give you certain benefits, right? One gives you 8 sheep and extra mining time. The other one gives you more gold from the traders. It's kind of like a little talent tree within every single game. The second thing is military schools, and military schools are what pretty much makes Ottomans in Age of Empires 4, which they're building that you can build 1 per age and unlock 1 extra with your vizier points. And what they do is once you produce military schools, they produce free units for the rest of the game. And they produce those free units a lot slower than normal production. So if a normal produced spearman is, let's say, 20 seconds, military school spearman is 100 and something seconds. Let's say 100 seconds, right? But it's free. As you age up, every time you can make like men-at-arms or crossbowmen, you can also produce those from military schools. So the way that Ottomans play out, they kind of start a little bit slow. They can't be super aggressive. But once they get going, once you get the military schools up, once you get 3-4 military schools and you start producing units, there's no civilization in the game that can outproduce you with the same amount of economy. So if you're playing, French versus Ottomans would have maybe disadvantage early on when French has knights and can kind of pressure you really early. But the moment your military schools kick in, usually French will struggle to simply match your numbers. And Ottomans are kind of like Abbasid in a way. They're like Zerg, but you don't overwhelm players with economy. You just overwhelm them with, you know, military schools and aging up and having more and more of them for a total of 5 in Imperial. They also have a couple of unique units that make them very interesting and good. They have Great Bombard, which is a unique bombard that costs a lot more than the usual one. It does splash damage. You can put, with Vizier points, you can unlock a talent where you can put infantry in your siege units to make them move and shoot faster, I think. You have Janissaries, which they don't have hand cannoneers, but they have Janissaries in H3, which deal bonus damage. They're a gunpowder unit that deal bonus damage against cavalry, so they're a civ that's also great against cavalry. And the last thing that they have is Unique Horseman, Sipahi, which is very good. It has an activation ability. And the last one, which is probably the strongest unit, in my opinion, that they have, and one of the strongest units in the game right now, is Mechtir, which they basically drum. They just go around and drum, and they give you attack speed aura or 2 different defenses auras that are very, very strong. And they just make your whole army shoot 15% faster, which is quite insane, and it works on siege as well. So in general, Ottomans, kind of like I said, start off slow, but then they want to overwhelm your opponent, and they're not very food focused civ early on. So you don't need to be out on the map too much in order to put pressure on your opponent. You know, on the other side, Rus and French kind of need to go out on the map. Yeah, I would say those are all 2-star civs. So French and English are 1-star civs. Ottomans, Holy Roman Empire, Rus, and Abbasid are 2-star civs. And now we got the hardest civs, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't play them. That just means they're more complicated to play in the terms of how much you need to know about them. Before I scare anyone off, you have civs like Malians, for example, that are 3 stars, but that doesn't mean that they're 3 times as hard than French. It just means that they have more complicated things and mechanics to work with. But once you understand how they work, they're very easy to, you know, play, just like French, just like any other civ. So you usually want to start with some of the more basic civs and then kind of up the scale and eventually just figure out what works for you, because I think you should always play a civ that you enjoy and not a civ that's more difficult or worse or better. So Malians, I was thinking about putting it in 2 stars, to be honest, but we'll go with 3. So Malians is a civ that is very, very focused on economy, infantry, and cattle, as it says. So they have unique animals that they can make, cattle, and they can gather food from them. They cost gold. Or they can also put them in a little, I don't know what they're called, cattle ranches, and they generate food passively. And this is a very unique mechanic to them. No other civ has this. That's something that they can do. And basically, once you get this cattle up and going, you'll get a lot of passive food income. So in the late game, you'll need less villagers to be able to sustain your economy. They also have a very unique building called pit mines, which they can put on gold. So Malians can mine gold, but they can also put these pit mines in gold veins, and the more houses you have around them and mining camps in the influence zone, you will also get passive gold from them. Even when the gold runs out, they still generate free gold. Now, all their units, every single unit from Malians except archers, is unique. What that means is they're the only ones that have that unit. So they have spearmen, but they're called donzos and they can throw spears. They have javelin throwers. They have Musafati warriors. They don't have horsemen or knights. They have sofas, which are kind of in between. And this is why, again, why I would put them as 3 stars. Not because those units are so hard to use. You just gotta learn, basically, 6-7 more units that are just unique to them. And other civs share a lot of the units that they have. So Malians in general are a civ that is very, very much based on gold. Gold, gold, gold. They also have a landmark in Castle Age that you can produce units with only gold. So there's in the current meta, there's a playstyle where you get to that landmark and then you put like 20-30 workers on gold and you're just pumping out units for pure gold and you try to overwhelm your opponent. In general, you can harass a lot with the Musafati warriors. Malians have stealth abilities on 2 of their units, Musafati warriors and Musafati gunners. So if that's something that interests you, that's something you can go for. You can ambush your opponent's army, do a lot of damage, and they have really good trade. So if it gets down to it, if you get the trade going, you can use that trade to sustain your army production with gold. Other than that, I would say that's pretty much it. They're very gold focused, and they basically start off, just kind of securing their golds initially. And if they lack food, they don't need to go on their map. They can produce cattle and gather from cattle. And then their real power spike comes in castle when they can produce a lot of units and kind of push away the opponent from the map completely. And you try to secure more gold for yourself, of course. The next civ we'll be talking about is Mongols. Mongols is a civ that starts without a TC. So you start with a packed up TC, and Mongol is a civ that can actually move their buildings. They can move every single one of their buildings except Uvu, that is placed on stone. So Mongols cannot gather stone. They placed Uvu on the stone, and it automatically generates stone slowly over time, kind of like gold pit mines, except they will run out eventually. So whenever you start with Mongols, you will start with unpacked TC or packed, and then you have to place your town center wherever you want. And they're kind of like a nomadic civ, but you're not really going to be moving around on the map with all your buildings. Ain't nobody got time for that. You're going to place your TC, and instead of making a lumber camp and mining camp and mill and this and that, Mongol can just make a building called Gur, and whenever you mine out gold or something, you can just unpack the Gur, move it, and put it in another gold spot. They also cannot build walls, which is very important. This is the only civilization in the game that cannot build walls, and it's the only civilization in the game that cannot build keeps. They also have, every civ starts with a scout. Mongols start with Khan, that is basically a scout that has ranged attack, and it has 3 different abilities on it. It's kind of like a mini hero unit that doesn't really do a lot of damage. Now, Mongols, the way they're played is very aggressive. So if you like attacking from the get-go, if you like being aggressive on your opponent, if you like tower rushing your opponent, if you like making your opponent rage quit, mauled, then Mongol might be for you. It's a civ that's very much based on tempo, kind of like French, except you can be aggressive with Mongol in Dark Age. You can instantly make a barracks or stables. It's the only civ that can make stables in Dark Age. And then you instantly produce units. You can tower rush opponent's gold, tower rush opponent food, and just be very, very aggressive from the start. And you kind of want to just keep raiding. You want to make them feel scared. You want to make them feel like they don't know where to go, that you might attack at any moment. That's kind of what Mongols are. And you can't really play Mongols super passive because of lack of walls. So you need to be the one dictating the tempo. And you want to be able to control your map by having towers upgraded, and you get vision from them to make sure your opponent doesn't backstab you or something like that. They also have a unique ability of plunder. Whenever they destroy a building, they get 25 food and 25 gold when they ignite the building, which is I think at 20-25% of building's HP. And this can be further upgraded to give you 75 food, 75 gold, and even later stone. They also have a very, very good trade. And they have a lot of unique upgrades, which they can use stone to, buy those upgrades. So usually other civilizations use stone for town centers. They use stone for walls, for keeps. The only thing that Mongol can use stone for is upgrading the towers, getting unique upgrades, which pretty much exist in every economic and military building, and for double producing units. So if Mongol has production buildings within their Uvu, they can double produce units with stone. So kind of give you that extra little boost. In general, they're very aggressive civ, and you should try and shut your opponent from the map as much as you possibly can and try to get advantage very early. The next civ we'll be talking about is Delhi Sultanate. In my opinion, this civ is probably a 2 out of 3 difficulty, but usually people struggle with it when starting out, and later on when they get used to it, they love playing it. Delhi Sultanate is a very unique civ. It's similar to Ottoman in a way, So Ottoman can produce free units. On the other side, Delhi can produce and gets free upgrades. So every single upgrade in the game for Delhi is free. Military, economic, any upgrade in any age is free. It just takes a lot longer to upgrade, which you can reduce by putting scholars in your mosques to reduce the research time. So every time you make a building with Delhi, doesn't matter if it's in Dark Age, in Feudal Age, in Castle, you want to instantly just start all upgrades in that building, and they're slowly going to upgrade. Now, this might seem like crazy OP or crazy good, but every Civ it is crazy good. But every Civ has their bonuses, and this is theirs. So they also have their civilization is very focused on research religion and have unique units in elephants that right now not the greatest, but they're very fun to use, and I'm sure they're gonna get buffed in the future. The religion part is the way Delhi fights compared to the other civs is they want to fight with their scholars that heal your units. So if you like your units being healed and having that sustain in battles, then Delhi might be the civ for you. And they're also the only civ in the game that can capture sacred sites, which are contested points on the map, in Feudal Age, which is the second age. So every civ can capture them in Castle, Delhi can capture them in Feudal, and they also get bonus gold whenever they capture and hold sacred sites. So it's very normal and common strategy for Delhi to go for sacred site wins. So instead of necessarily killing your opponent, you can go for very early sacred site win, and the only thing you got to do is hold sacred sites for 10 minutes and you'll be able to get the win. Whenever you construct, by the way, mills with Abbasid or Delhi, I forgot to mention, next to berry bushes, you increase the food capacity on each berry by 100. And the reason for this is because they cannot gather boar like the other civs, so they kind of give them a little something extra. The general playstyle of Delhi is a little bit of a slow start initially because you can't, age up and pump units immediately. But the moment you get your blacksmiths, you get your upgrade started, you want to just fully produce units as Delhi, and you want to capture the sacred sites. That should be your main priority. You can also wall the sacred sites, and once you get sacred sites, you will get the gold starting to trickle in the feudal, and you can use that gold to either continue attacking your opponent and making more scholars, or you can age up to castle and get access to more units and more upgrades because they're free. So basically, whenever you age up with Delhi, the moment you age up, they're kind of the weakest. And as the upgrades are rolling in, your upgrades all finish out at like the same time. So you get a huge power spike when that happens. So they start off slow, but they're very tempo-based civ later on. And it's very important to have sacred sites and to be out on the map. This is not a civ where you sit back in your base and do nothing. You gotta take the sacred sites and you force your opponent to come out on the map and play on your terms. And I save best for last because this civ is probably the best and also the most complicated civ as of right now. And to me, it has a very interesting playstyle. Chinese. So Chinese have a lot of stuff going. So first of all, they produce buildings faster, they construct defenses faster. Every time you create a unit with Chinese or an upgrade or anything, you produce gold in taxes. And those taxes need to be picked up by imperial officials. They do it automatically, you don't have to do it. They're a unique unit to Chinese, and you can have 4 imperial officials. Now, imperial officials can collect gold, they can supervise buildings to make them produce faster, and they can also supervise economic buildings like mill, lumber camp, mining camp. And whenever they supervise a building, they're just standing there and saying, "Good job, everyone." The resources on that mining camp or lumber get dropped off 20% extra. So it's a civ that requires a lot of macro managing. You need to, whenever you move to another food resource, to lumber resource, you also need to change your imperial officials to those to get the maximum amount of resources from them. And this is kind of why they're a difficult civ to play. There's a lot of macro managing with Chinese. You got to make sure you have one imperial official collecting taxes. The other guys need to be supervising the buildings if you want to get the maximum efficiency. Now, another cool thing about Chinese, and they're the only civ that can do this and that have this, is they have dynasties. So Chinese have 4 dynasties. I probably cannot name them. It's Tang, Song, Ming, and Yuan dynasty. And each of these dynasties give you different bonuses. So for example, Tang dynasty is the dynasty that you start with and increases the line of sight of your scouts by 30% and provides you access to another building which you have automatically. So their scouts have 30% range, which is great for early game. Then their second dynasty is a Song dynasty, which allows you to produce your villagers 5 seconds faster. So it goes from 20-second production time to 15. Third dynasty is Yuan dynasty, which increases the movement speed of your units, all your units. And then the fourth dynasty is, once you get it, all your military units get, I think it's 10% extra health. The way you achieve these dynasties is by another unique thing by Chinese, is every time a civilization ages up, they build a landmark. So you have options between 2 landmarks and you build 1, and that's it. That's how you age up. Well, Chinese can build both landmarks in each age. So, initially you build 1 landmark out of the 2 if you want to advance to feudal, but shortly after you can make the second landmark as well in feudal, and then you would go from Tang dynasty that you start with into Song dynasty. The castle landmarks, once you build both of them, you achieve Yuan dynasty, which gives you movement speed. And if you go to Imperial, when you build both landmarks, you achieve Ming dynasty, which gives you bonus health. So this is a unique thing to Chinese. No other civ can build this many landmarks. And you cannot have more than 1 dynasty activated. This is very important to know. So if you start with Tang dynasty, if you go to Song, you are now in Song dynasty. You produce faster villagers. Once you have enough villagers, eventually you want to transition to, let's say, Ming dynasty, and then you get extra HP on your units. And if that's what you want, that's where you stay, right? Obviously, you keep your landmarks from the previous ages, but someone asked in the chat, I saw that, you do not get to keep all your bonuses from every single dynasty. So that's something that's very, very important. China also has one of the coolest siege units, Nest of Bees. Their siege units are very, very strong. Probably the strongest in the game, maybe second strongest. There are a civ that is very, very focused on booming, which is a term for expanding, growing your economy. You want to go second town center with that Song dynasty and just kind of have way, 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 way more workers than your opponent. You want to overwhelm your opponent with your economy, and eventually you can come out, be able to fight your opponent, defend, or you can just camp and just go Imperial. China is one of the strongest civs with English in Imperial Age, so it can be played many different ways. And the fact that you have different dynasties and landmarks, it allows you for a lot of variety, different play styles. You can attack in feudal, you can attack in castle, you can attack in Imperial, you can sit back the whole game and just let the economy work for you. It's all good. As long as you have food economy, you don't need to worry about going out on the map too much with China, but it is very, very macro intensive civ, probably the hardest civ to do the macro well. So if that's something that interests you, then this is definitely the civilization for you. And that's pretty much it. I think we have covered it. Now, I want to emphasize once again, guys, if you're new to Age of Empires 4 and you don't know which civ to choose, I didn't mean to, push anyone away by saying, oh, China is the hardest civ. You don't want to, go that. My advice is, if you only want to play one civ and you want to, just play team games or solo games with one civ, that's completely okay. But 100% I would say try out all the civs. Play against AIs and just see what works for you. Some of the civs might seem too complicated, but then when you get into it, you're like, oh, this is kind of pretty cool mechanic, and you enjoy doing it. A lot of people find roost killing animals tedious to start. A lot of people love it. It's like an extra mini game every single game. A lot of people love Abbasid base building. A lot of people love tower rushing with Mongols. So there's something for everyone. And one thing that I love about Age of Empires 4 is all the civilizations are completely unique. There's no civ that is exactly like the other one, where it's like I can play this or this, they're the same. They're very unique, and no matter what kind of style you like in strategy games, you will find a style that's for you. Whether that style is, you know, more of the basic civs or the 2 out of 3 star civs or the hardest civs. It's the most important you enjoy the civ that you play, and don't worry too much about balance, you know. One day, one civ is going to be OP or really good. The next day, another civ will be really good. So that's it. If you're new to Age of Empires 4 or you wanted more information about the civs, I hope this helped you out, and I hope you learned what the civs are all about, and hopefully they help you pick out which civ you want to be starting with. If you're watching this on YouTube, once again, Happy New Year, because it's going to be uploaded in 2023. And if you're watching on Twitch, let's keep gaming.